Right now, while you're watching this, there's a good chance your garden is getting cooked alive. The lettuce bolted, the spinach turned bitter. Half your seedlings look like they're begging for mercy. And here's the thing nobody tells you. It's not your fault. You're just growing the wrong vegetables for this weather. Because while your garden is struggling, there are vegetables out there that are doing the exact opposite. The hotter it gets, the faster they grow. Triple-digit heat doesn't scare them. It feeds them. Today I'm giving you 10 of these vegetables. Real ones. Ones you can still plant this month and actually harvest before summer's over. Quick heads up, a few of these will have you eating within weeks. Others take a couple months to fully pay off. But every single one of them will still be alive and thriving when the heat wipes out everything else in your yard. That's the whole point. Stick around. Because number 6 is the one almost nobody grows. And it might end up being your favorite thing in the entire garden this year. Let's get into it. Malabar spinach. Forget everything you know about spinach for a second. The spinach in your grocery store, it dies the second real heat hits. But there's a version from tropical India that does the complete opposite. It practically explodes with growth once the temperature climbs. It's called Malabar spinach, and it's not even the same plant family as regular spinach. It's a vine, a hungry, fast-climbing vine that will happily eat up a trellis, a cage, or a fence in front of your eyes. Here's the trick most people get wrong. They treat it like leafy greens, which want shallow, quick watering. Malabar spinach want the opposite. Deep, rich, well-draining soil that stays consistently moist. Let it dry out and the leaves turn bitter fast. Keep it happy, though, and about 50 days after planting, you can start ripping leaves off constantly. It just keeps producing. There are 2 color varieties, one with white stems, one with deep red stems. The red one looks incredible in a garden photo, but flavor-wise, they're basically the same. Pick whichever one makes your garden look better on camera. Honest heads up, texture is where this one gets polarizing. Cooked right, it's a great curry or stir-fry green. Cooked wrong or overcooked, it can turn a bit slimy. So don't just boil it and walk away. Toss it into a hot pan for a short cook instead. Bottom line, if regular spinach quits on you by June, this is your July replacement. Okra. If there's one vegetable on this list that was basically built for extreme heat, it's this one. Okra doesn't just tolerate hot weather. It needs it. This plant came from hot regions of Africa, and it shows. The hotter and drier it gets, the happier it is. Here's something most gardening videos won't tell you. Okra grows tall and skinny, not wide and bushy. That means you can actually plant shade-loving crops like lettuce right underneath it. As the okra shoots up, it creates natural shade for whatever's growing at its feet. You basically get 2 harvests out of 1 row. One warning, though, pick a spineless variety. Some old-school okra varieties are covered in tiny spikes that will absolutely wreck your forearms during harvest. Look for something labeled spineless, and space your plants about 1.5 feet apart. And yes, there's an old folk tradition of gently smacking the side of okra plants to encourage growth. Does it actually work? Nobody can prove it, but it's a fun bit of garden folklore, if you want to try it. Sweet potatoes. This one surprises people every time, because sweet potatoes aren't even related to regular potatoes. Different plant family entirely. What they are, though, is one of the most heat-obsessed crops you can grow. We're talking 80-degree plus weather being their sweet spot. No pun intended. These plants actually originated in Central and South America, and centuries ago, they made their way across the Pacific to Polynesia, likely carried by early voyagers, long before Europeans ever reached the Americas. Wild history for a vegetable. The setup is simple. Loose, sandy soil works best. If your soil is heavy or clay-like, mix in some sand. It makes a noticeable difference. Get your slips in the ground early in the season. Then basically leave them alone for about 4 months while the heat does the heavy lifting underground. The harvest is honestly one of the most satisfying moments in gardening. You're not picking anything off a vine. You're digging into the dirt and pulling out these huge, hidden treasures you didn't even know were down there. Bonus tip most people don't know. The leaves are edible too. Cook them down like you would spinach. And you basically got a free extra harvest growing right on top of the soil while the good stuff builds underneath. No yard? No problem. A 20 to 24 inch container, like a cut-in-half wine barrel, works perfectly fine. Summer squash. Here's a plant that's been feeding people for over 8,000 years, and it's still one of the easiest wins in a hot garden. Summer squash doesn't just survive the heat. It uses it as fuel. The warmer it gets, the faster it pumps out fruit. This is exactly why squash becomes an overwhelming, almost comedic amount of produce by midsummer. There's literally an unofficial holiday where people joke about sneaking zucchini onto their neighbors' porches because they have too much of it. Don't just default to zucchini, though. There are dozens of shapes and flavors out there. Round ones, curved ones, striped ones. Trying a less common variety is a small way to make your garden content stand out instead of looking like everyone else's zucchini harvest photo. Keep the soil consistently moist, give it full sun, and get ready for more squash than you know what to do with. Peppers. Out of every vegetable on this list, peppers might be the single most versatile heat-loving crop that exists. Sweet ones, mild ones, blazing hot ones. They're all built from the same wild ancestor that was first cultivated by ancient peoples in Mexico. And when it comes to heat tolerance, peppers sit right in the middle of their plant family. Tomatoes handle heat the least. Peppers handle it better. Eggplants handle it best of the three. If you're in a warmer zone, you can direct sow pepper seeds outside once soil hits around 70 degrees. Cooler climate? Start them indoors about 2 months before your last frost. The real secret to keeping peppers thriving through brutal heat isn't fancy fertilizer. It's watering deep and infrequently, then piling mulch around the base to lock in moisture. Do that, and peppers will shrug off heat that kills weaker plants. One thing you don't need to do, topping your pepper plants to force bushier growth. It works, technically, but on larger varieties, it usually just slows down your total harvest. Save that trick for smaller pepper varieties, if you try at all. All right, quick pause. We're halfway there. If you're already thinking about which of these 5 you're switching to this year, do me a favor and hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps this video reach more gardeners fighting the exact same heat you are right now. Now, let's get into the last 5, because number 6 is the one I've been waiting to tell you about this whole time. Tepary beans. This is the one I mentioned at the start, and I promise it's worth the wait. Tepary beans are so heat tolerant that they're grown commercially in actual desert regions of the American Southwest, not warm climates. Deserts. These beans thrive in alkaline, sandy soil and genuinely dislike too much water, a rare trait in the vegetable world, where most plants are begging for a drink. If your soil is heavy clay, they'll be trickier, but even then, they can pull through where other beans would rot. Flavor-wise, people who've never tried them are always shocked. They make one of the richest, most flavorful bean broths you'll ever taste. Dense, earthy, almost meaty. If you want something a little more familiar that still handles heat well, a pole variety like Kentucky Wonder is a solid backup option. And growing vertically saves space while still producing heavily even in scorching weather. Eggplant. Remember how peppers handle heat better than tomatoes? Eggplant beats them both. Out of the entire tomato pepper eggplant family, eggplant is the one that treats extreme heat like a vacation. While other plants are wilting by 2 p.m., eggplant just keeps producing glossy, healthy fruit like nothing happened. The mistake most people make is underestimating how much sun and heat this plant actually wants. It's not a part shade tolerant crop. Give it full, brutal sun and it rewards you for it. Deep, infrequent watering plus a thick layer of mulch keeps the roots cool while the top of the plant bakes happily in the sun. Varieties range from the classic large purple globe type to slender Japanese and Thai varieties that cook faster and taste slightly sweeter. If you've written eggplant off because of one bad bitter experience, a hot, well-watered plant is usually the fix. Stressed eggplant get bitter. Happy ones don't. Cowpeas, southern peas. If okra is a king of southern heat crops, cowpeas are the quiet, underrated queen, also known as black-eyed peas or southern peas. This crop was practically made for the exact combination of high heat and low rainfall that wrecks most other vegetables in July and August. While your other beans are stressed and dropping flowers in the heat, cowpeas are just getting started. They're incredibly low maintenance. Once established, they need very little babying, and as a bonus, they actually improve your soil by pulling nitrogen from the air and feeding it back into the ground. Something almost no other crop on this list does for free. Direct, sow them once the soil is warm. Give them something to climb if you pick a vining variety, and mostly just get out of their way. This is a plant for anyone who wants a big harvest without hovering over it every day. Amaranth callaloo. This is the leafy green you plant when regular lettuce and spinach have already given up on you for the season. Amaranth thrives in exactly the kind of heat that turns other greens bitter and stringy. In many Caribbean and West African dishes, it's known as callaloo, and it's treated as a summer staple for a reason. It just keeps producing tender, edible leaves even when daytime highs are brutal. It also grows fast, really fast. You can start harvesting outer leaves within a few weeks of planting, and the plant keeps pushing out new growth from the center as you go. Some varieties even produce a grain-like seed head later in the season, which is a fun bonus if you let a few plants mature fully. If you've been mourning your bolted lettuce, amaranth is basically the heat-proof replacement you didn't know you needed. Sunflowers. I'm including this one because, honestly, it earns its spot, even though it's technically a flower and not a vegetable in the traditional sense. Sunflowers were being cultivated by indigenous peoples in what's now the American Southwest thousands of years ago, in some of the driest, hottest growing conditions on the continent. That heritage still shows today. Once a sunflower's roots are established, it barely needs babysitting. It just shoots upward, heat or no heat. Here's the part almost nobody knows. Nearly the entire plant is edible. The leaves, the stem, the immature flower head, all of it cooked, not raw, much like you prepare an artichoke. And a fair warning, it's an interesting thing to try, not a flavor that's going to blow you away. Think neat garden experiment more than new favorite dish. Its cousin, the Jerusalem artichoke, produces an edible tuber underground, similar in spirit to the sweet potato we talked about earlier, and that one actually does taste great. If you want one set it and forget it plant that rewards you visually and adds a genuinely useful, hardy crop to your hot weather garden, sunflowers are an easy final pick. So there you have it, 10 vegetables that don't just survive extreme heat. They actually depend on it. Hit subscribe if you want more of this. And drop a comment telling me 2 things: where you're watching from and which one of these 10 you're growing this year. I'm going to pin my favorite one. Next video, I'm breaking down which of these 10 work best depending on your exact climate: humid heat, dry desert heat, or somewhere in between. So subscribe now if you don't want to miss that one. Stay cool and keep growing.